The Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here for you, baby, for a little Wednesday Q&A, as always. Woo, boy. So really been a wild past few weeks. I've had a bunch of episodes that I've been kind of sitting on to get out there and released. Mainly, they haven't been released just because of time, but we're going to get these knocked out, and I'm going to start. I really will. I know I've been saying it for a couple weeks, but I really will be releasing other bonus episodes over the next few days. Got quite a few really to go through. So, anyway, let me let me adjust my Cloud HyperX or my Cloud 2 HyperX headset here a little bit, make things a little clearer for you. So we got a bunch to get into with this episode. A bunch of different questions I want to get into. First off, I want to say that I got some incredibly gracious, and I mean incredibly gracious, Zcash donations this past week, and I am so honored by that. Of course, also welcome to all the new patrons. I know we got some new patrons. Actually lost a couple patrons this week. One of which I know why, the other I don't know why. But somebody emailed me and they were not pleased at my opinions of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And look, I don't expect Sovereign Tech listeners, especially Sovereign Tech patrons. I mean, I don't think we agree with each other 100% of the time. But we both know, we all, because it's certainly not just two of us, we all know that, kind of everybody brings something new to the table, and I'm really honored by a lot of comments that people have made to me over the years saying that regardless whether they agreed with me or not, just they feel that what I bring is so entertaining, unique, and if anything, adds on to their own insights. And I really appreciate that. Look, folks, I don't expect you to agree with me 100% of the time. I'm not... I know we talk about ethics a lot, and it can seem like I'm saying, okay, you need to think this way, you need to think this way, blah, 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 blah. Think how you want. I don't care. Okay, I know how many, like, just the widespread audience and the wide ideological spread that my audience has. And we all just get along fine, because we're all sharing our opinions, we move on, and we all know that we're peaceful people, and so who gives a shit, right? It's when people are threatening violence that it becomes an issue. And certainly there are plenty of people in the, I don't necessarily want to say in the tech space, but maybe more in the liberty anarchy space, some of which, really do espouse violence against people for just being what they are, or having a different opinion on what economic system may work for them, well, that's a real fucking issue. But I'm not one of those people by any stretch. I'm as peaceful as they come. So anyway, point being is that, I get it if you don't agree with what I have to say. I would love for you to, I appreciate that the one person emailed me and told me why, and I responded to them, very kindly. It wasn't saying, oh, you got to come back, and this. But, if you're going to leave, let me know. Just let me know. I mean, I'm not going to change my opinion on Assange or WikiLeaks by no stretch. I'm not going to change anything. But it helps me to know what exactly is going on. Was it something I said? Was it, what is it? Just email me, and let me know. And it's totally cool. I wasn't mean to this person back, even though they're being kind of crass to me. I appreciate their support for however long they had it. And I mean, and even if it's just financial reasons, I totally understand that. Holy shit, do I understand that. Just let me know if you want to leave, if there's something you disagreed with or you're not getting the value. I really want to know that. If a patron doesn't feel like they're getting value out of what I do, for Patreon only content anyway, just say the word. Like I that's really important to me to hear. And believe me, there's not a patron that I'm really going to be mean to, even if you get crass with me. Well, I mean, I guess maybe there's some things you could say where I would get mean, but whatever. Anyway, so but we got a lot of new patrons as well. So welcome to the dark side. I had a great someone who has done work with this show. She had said to me that that's how she described it. She's like, oh yeah, I talked to this person here, and I think we're converting him to the dark side, and we're converting all these people to the dark side. And I thought that was really sweet. And I was like, well, that's great. I love that people consider becoming a part of the Sovereign Tech audience. That's considered coming to the dark side. Anyway, welcome to the new patrons, of course, and thank you to all of you who have been patrons for some time. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I was just so honored by those Zcash donations. This is something, I'll talk about this briefly. Like, it seems like everybody's kind of picking teams these days as far as crypto goes. I mean, kind of everybody loves Bitcoin. Well, at least I hope they do. Um, but outside of that, I mean, Dash is doing some pretty wild things. You've got your people that are real holdouts for Monero. You've got people that get excited about some other aspects. You got a lot of people excited about Steam It, even though we've already covered how that's really fallen apart. A lot of this, and you know, if I were to pick a team, if I were to pick a crypto outside of Bitcoin, that really excited me and that I follow really heavily, like, reading their boards and, just following the blogs and all that stuff. I mean, it's definitely Zcash for me. And just because, and I can show you the episode. I mean, this is something I've been excited about forever. You can go back to Sovereign Tech Special number 2, where I talked about Bitcoin. I talked about Zero Coin right there, which is Zcash is the fruition of Zero Coin. So anyway, just really honored by that. Of course, it is the only, now if you go to, when you go to sovereigntech.com, it takes you right to the Patreon page. And at the beginning of the Patreon page, like, there's some what's the show about, blah, blah, blah. And there's my sponsors are listed there. And there are 2 donation types listed there. In fact, I don't even have PayPal listed there, and I should. But whatever, maybe I'll fix that later. But there's 2 donation options there outside of Patreon itself. One of them, of course, is Bitcoin, of course, because we love Bitcoin at Sovereign Tech. The other, right underneath, is Zcash. Both the shielded and the transparent. And both of the donations I got were shielded, which I know that takes a little bit of work to get that all set up, to run and go. And so I'm just really honored that those, whoever they were, I mean, I can't know because they're completely encrypted and shielded, transactions. I don't know who sent them, but I'm honored that you did. So thank you so much for that. Just wanted to put that out there. So yay Team Zcash. Now another thing. Now this is we're not even touching the questions yet, and we got a bunch of great questions to get into, including a great tech one and some other stuff. This was really, sometimes you don't follow your own advice, right? I use a piece of software, an app called Simplenote. And I use this because it works really well in Linux, cross-platform, and all that. It's not like really an encrypted option whatsoever. But, of course, what's there doesn't really need to be encrypted anyway. And with Simplenote, a weird thing. So they have like a Windows app, they have an Ubuntu app and all that, and then of course they have Android and iOS and everything. And I've heard so many people over the years really kind of swear by this app that I was like, and people that I trust, so I'm like, all right, fine, I'll run with it. And I've used it for quite some time myself, actually, over the years. I mean, I talked about Simplenote a long time ago on Sovereign Tech. And there really hasn't been, I haven't really had any serious issues. The only issues I ever had was, for a little while, the desktop client wasn't syncing very well with the mobile client. Now the web, because you can go to a web version of it right in a web page, which is very nice. The web version of it would sync fine across the board, but the desktop version wouldn't do such a great job. And so I was a little annoyed by it, and I kind of walked away from it for a little bit. And then I jumped back on board with it really once it got a dark theme, because like dark themes on apps and software, I mean, it's an instant seller for me, because I can't fucking stand that searing, burn your eyes out white, that most apps deal with. I fucking hate it. I mean, it's so bad. So when it got a dark theme, I was like, all right, yeah, well, what the hell, and I'm sure it's been a while, and I tried out the desktop app, and the syncing issues didn't exist anymore, and everything was fine. And of course, understand, obviously, since this is something that syncs across the board to, a website, to a desktop app, to a mobile app, this is cloud-based, right? And so I started using it for the show notes, for my episodes of Sovereign Tech, and also to store questions. Some of the questions that I get asked. Now, understand, the questions, like where needed, I take out important information. I am not leaving your details or credentials of any kind, or identifying material in a not so secure app like Simplenote. Okay, is merely for ease of use. So no matter where I was, I'd have access to this, and I could end up using it. Um, and don't worry, there's a point to all this. So just a few days ago, suddenly, like, there was a bunch of copies. And a few days ago, so we're recording this on March 22nd, 2017 HE. So this would have been this past Saturday, I think, or maybe Sunday. And like suddenly, like all the notes within Simplenote were like within each note, because you can have multiple notes within it, right? Within each note, there would make like 20 copies of whatever you had typed. And I don't know where that came from. Total fluke. Very, very strange. Like your slider would, be the size, it'd be like the size of a flea or something. I mean, it's just really, really tiny, right? Because there was so much text in there, and it's like, who the hell would type all, how did this happen? Like, did I hit control? And it was affecting all the notes, so then I realized, okay, it's something wrong with Simplenote. So I said, all right, well, I'll have to just copy, I don't know what happened here, but I'm just going to take everything, I'm going to get away from Simplenote, I'll take everything out of here, and I will put it into another solution. I wasn't able, because I've been so busy, I wasn't able to do it, Monday or Tuesday of this week, and I was going to get to it today because it's like, all right, well, it's time, I got to record a Q&A, so why don't I do it then? And I go to look at Simplenote, and I mean, I put a ton of shit in there between Saturday and Sunday, and it was all gone. All those extraneous multiple copies of notes disappeared, but then everything else that I added between like today and say Saturday or Sunday, disappeared as well. And I was like, what the fuck? I mean, and I I put in a lot of shit. So I lost a ton of links. I lost the questions I have, in their emails or Patreon message form or something like that. Or on Twitter. So I just have to reorganize them. So I have all your questions. Don't worry about that. But like what I had planned, like I already had a show planned out for this week. Like that's kind of gone. And I mean, and it just disappeared. Now understand, Simplenote, it's not just something done by some penny ante developers. This is actually a software created by Automatic. Automatic is run by, the guys that created WordPress. And of course, WordPress, powers what? Some odd, how many websites, like 20% of websites on the internet, if not more. I mean, WordPress is a big deal. So, I mean, having a degree of trust in Simplenote is not crazy and not outlandish. So I am going to be emailing Automatic to find out about this because, I mean, not that I expect to get my data back. And it's funny because Simplenote even added a new feature where you could, and maybe this is what brought it on, but they brought in a restore note feature to where you can go back such and so many days and use an older version of the note. And I wonder if what happened is that in the reversion process, it it ended up just pasting all of the notes that it had stored, in one spot. So maybe I can go back to a certain day, and because of the fluke of whatever the fuck happened at Automatic with their servers, maybe I could find all those things that I added in. But oh man, that'd be a pain in the ass. So anyway, this is what happens when you trust cloud storage. Bottom line, when you trust some other company's cloud, this is exactly the kind of I mean, this isn't terrible. This isn't life destroying or anything, but some people, oh boy, maybe this would be bad enough for them to where that really would be that could really fuck you over. So I was very disappointed in this. I mean, it really, really pissed me off, and it's to some degree my own fault because it's like, okay, you shouldn't have been putting all this stuff, into Simplenote. And I'm not going to, obviously, from here on out, I'm not trusting a cloud solution, or at least not a cloud that I don't own myself. And I'm just going to have it get done another way. Probably what I'm going to do is I have a NAS that I operate, and I'll just run it off of that NAS because I can access that NAS, whenever, wherever needed, and I have great apps for it. So So that's the solution. I think everybody really that's something that I need to be covering a lot more on Sovereign Tech. I think everybody should be setting up a NAS, free NAS or whatever you want to do. NAS, of course, is network area storage. It's like setting up your own server without having to have a gigantic server rack or even like a server desktop necessarily. And I think these things are so handy, so easy to just pick up and run, if you need to. And yeah, this is really like a path to the future to where, and I've talked about this before on Sovereign to where like really every home can have its own server, and the bulk of what you do can be handled through that server. I mean, even if you're using something from like Synology or whatever, like the chat, like you could set up like your own messaging service through like a Synology NAS. You can set up like an Office, like Office software. Like productivity software and all that. I mean, there's so many great options out there right now. There's really no reason any longer. And you can create users. I mean, it depends. If you're like a gigantic enterprise, like a big company or something, well, obviously there's a reason that Microsoft still makes a shit ton of money because they are one of the rare companies that can handle that kind of load, right? But if you're working with a very small team, a 20-person team or something like that, holy shit, set up your own server for fuck's sake. And it's really like, especially with something like Synology or whatever, it's really not that hard to do anymore. It's just not. They make that shit so easy to maintain. So maybe I'll go over that in a future. Maybe it'll be a Patreon episode, or maybe it'll be an episode, an episode of Sovereign Tech proper to kind of go over that. But yeah, yep. Just even with the simple things, and this is kind of the simple things. It's just a nuisance what happened with losing a lot of those Sovereign Tech links and whatever. Yep. Not trusting any fucking cloud service with that shit. Not unless it's under my control directly. Which of course my NAS is. But anyway, okay, that's it. let's get into some questions this week. Just consider that fair warning with Simplenote. I was really disappointed that happened, and I will not be recommending that app any longer. And really going forward, I'm going to be recommending that people set up their own servers. Their own NAS. And again, like I said, you cannot imagine, I don't care what tech level you're at, how easy it is to set up a Synology server. The hardest part is putting choosing the right hard drive and putting a hard drive inside one of those things. And of course, it's only like 8 screws, but that's, in so many ways, that's really the hardest part of that whole trick. Synology has great walkthrough videos and instructions and everything. I mean, anybody can set up a NAS today. Or if you want to do free NAS, of course, that's even better. There's the other, not is it Sandstorm? Sandstorm, I think, is the other one that's kind of a NAS software that's designed to create like your own literal Google Drive with docs and message, all those features there too. So that's definitely a way I'm going to be talking going forward. Not even necessarily using OneDrive or stuff like this. I mean, even like with the Synology, with one of their NASs, you can even set up to where like you could do photo sharing. I know we covered this recently on a Patreon episode, and I said, well, kind of the easiest solution to be able to share and whatever with everybody would be like OneDrive. But kind of going forward now, I mean, OneDrive is still a good solution in my opinion, just because even though like OneDrive, I think even had some downtime the other day, but just because Microsoft Azure is not AWS. And AWS is far too centralized to my liking, so I think using Microsoft services just because that they run independently of AWS is a really great idea. And don't tell me use Google. Google uses a shit ton of AWS. All right, their server farms are too busy doing other crap, and other crap that honestly bothers me. All right, but understand that even a lot of Google's services are functioning off of AWS. Even Skype, unfortunately runs a bit off of AWS, even though they're putting that more and more onto Azure as Azure grows. So anyway, OneDrive is still kind of like a viable option. Obviously, it's not a private option, but going forward, like people really got to jump on network area storage. Make your own servers, have that shit in your home. I mean, these things are tiny too. Depending on what model and what you decide to go with. And there's hardened versions that are like fireproof and everything. I mean, there's a lot of options as far as the shit goes. So that's going to be my recommendation going forward because I am sick and goddamn tired. Like, I mean, Automatic didn't say anything. They didn't send out any emails saying, "Oh, so sorry that we fucked up your notes and blah blah blah." And when Google Drive is down, or even when OneDrive is down, and all this stuff, I mean, fuck it. As to where you have network area storage, I mean, hot damn. you know, there ain't no downtime, baby. I mean, it's not any downtime that's outside of your control in many ways, anyway. So, all right. Let's get into some tech questions. This question was basically this actually came from Twitter, and that was, what are your thoughts on StartPage as compared to DuckDuckGo? And I answered it on Twitter, and I mean, there's a short answer to this, but I want to go into greater depth. The short answer is actually kind of dovetails nicely off of what we were just saying about Microsoft Azure. The short answer is that DuckDuckGo does not use Google as its backend. Okay. Now, StartPage, if you go to StartPage.com, you can check that out. StartPage.com is effectively, it's using Google search as its backend. But it makes it private through varying degrees that they're able to kind of make that work. Much like Disconnect.me did, even though Disconnect.me lost the ability of anonymizing Google search within like the search bar. So like Disconnect.me would do it through your Omni bar, right? Or through the address bar or whatever search box you happen to have. StartPage can do that if you configure it for that, but it doesn't do that kind of right out of the gate like Disconnect.me did. Anyway, StartPage uses Google, does a fine job, but it doesn't. It uses Google's backend. I'll describe more of why that's an issue in a second. But DuckDuckGo actually uses Bing as its backend. Okay. And now you could say, well, it's still Microsoft. It's still just as bad. All right. If that's your opinion, that's fine. I share that opinion with you. I am not like, yay, Microsoft. Like, I don't wave that flag, folks. Okay. I'm just saying that Google is a company that I kind of want to see tank. All right, we'll take them out one by one, all right, and peacefully. We'll take them out one by one. First, let's get rid of Google. Then we can get rid of Microsoft. Then we can get rid of Apple, okay? And then hopefully in the future, everything is these small 20-man team companies that specialize, much like DuckDuckGo is. Okay, now StartPage is a small company. I don't have a problem with StartPage. Like using StartPage.com or using DuckDuckGo, either one's fine. All right, really. Okay, the main reason that I like to use DuckDuckGo is just because it's not using a Google service and it's not validating any numbers for Google itself. All right, because using StartPage.com still gives to, say, investors and whoever else that, oh, well, our searches are still going through the roof because you're still using Google search, you're just anonymizing it. Okay, again, that's fine. I'm not making any kind of crazy ethical case here. All right, I'm just saying that I want Google's services to just stop being used across the board. No matter if you're anonymizing them, if you're using it for bullshit or whatever. Okay, just stop. Now, YouTube is a different case because YouTube has been for a long time, has operated as a completely different company. I want the YouTube killer to come out there. It's not Vimeo. And I haven't seen a blockchain solution either that's really, going to be on top of that. That's going to be that YouTube killer. We need a YouTube killer. I kind of wish Microsoft would invest in that, or somebody would. Maybe Amazon, is probably the only company that could do that. But if there's one company that scares the fuck out of me more than Google, it'd be Amazon. But right now, my sights are okay. What company do we want to bring down the size? It's Google. I mean, in many ways, it's already happening, and we've talked about this many times on Sovereign Tech, and I've predicted for some time that really Google is, down the line is going to become YouTube, and it's just, YouTube's going to be the main company, and that will be the name that people will remember, and not so much Google. I mean, Google's already, Google search is already kind of losing ground based upon just based upon the fact that Facebook is like Facebook is the most visited site on the internet compared to Google.com. So they're kind of already losing some edge, as far as that goes. Anyway, so that's it. I mean, it's such a fine point, and it's just in my own opinion, that I want. I don't want to use Google's services in any way, shape, or form, if I can help it. Now, there's areas where I can help it, right? Like this week coming this Sunday, okay, which the date for this Sunday. Let's see, the date for this Sunday is the 26th. Okay, March 26th, this Sunday, I'm doing a Google Hangout. It sucks. I hate it. Well, actually, it's not a Google Hangout. It's YouTube Live. So it's all part of that YouTube thing, right? But again, that's what I'm saying. YouTube is kind of a very separate animal, and they know that, and that's why they're spinning off everything away more into having the YouTube branding instead of having the Google branding so much, right? So anyway, yeah, I mean, just as much as I can, I don't want to use Google's services if I can help it. So that's why I use DuckDuckGo. Also, I mean, DuckDuckGo does a lot. The other advantages. And this isn't anything against StartPage. StartPage just doesn't have the money, and that's, or they don't have the funding, and I understand that. But DuckDuckGo really backs and supports so many different hacker conferences, so many different projects. Like, I mean, this is the little company that could. It's just like this 20-person team in Philadelphia, and good on them. They've never made a New York office, because that's the death knell for any small company, in my opinion, is to think that they should make a New York office. Never do that. Okay, if you happen to be hearing the sound of my voice and you have some kind of company, that somehow got into the Fortune 400 and you're thinking about opening a New York office, for fuck's sake, don't you dare. Don't do it. You're going to kill your company just from what it costs to run that. So anyway, yeah, DuckDuckGo, they do it right. It's just, I agree with how the company does business. I'm very supportive of them. They have other services that they offer too. Like there's DuckDuckGo. That's duck.co instead of duckduckgo.com, where you can get, they offer an XMPP server that's really great, that you could hook up with OTR, run it in Pigeon, and you've got encrypted communications. So I appreciate that they do that. I just, part of me really wants to just give DuckDuckGo the metrics. People use this. People make this happen. So I don't have any big problem with StartPage.com. I don't. All right, I just, it's nuance that makes me, or that has me want to use DuckDuckGo. The other thing I like is that, the Android app for DuckDuckGo can be connected through Orbot, can be connected through Tor, and so then you can search through Tor. And DuckDuckGo is great about searching through Tor. Something that StartPage also doesn't offer. There's a litany of little features that DuckDuckGo provides that, in my opinion, makes it the superior search engine and the superior company. Now, I know StartPage has StartMail, which I haven't really messed with much. It's a totally pay-for service. Nothing wrong with that. Okay? I haven't messed with it much. I don't know a whole ton about it. And obviously, there's, in my opinion, just based on what I saw, there's kind of better ways to do mail. I have nothing against it. I think it's great. It's just it doesn't meet my needs and preferences. All right. But yeah, I mean, so I'm glad StartPage exists. I think DuckDuckGo does so much more, offers so much more, and especially the Tor, working within Tor is just dynamite. That's a wonderful, wonderful fucking thing. So that's why I say DuckDuckGo is the superior, and it's the one that I recommend. So you got a bunch of reasons there. Other services they offer, their support for various, proper tech communities, and also their support of Tor, and of course not using Google's backend. Which you can say, I understand the argument here, because the argument would be is that, well, because StartPage uses Google, the search results are actually better than DuckDuckGo. You're right. They are. They are better. But they're not that much better. Okay? And in fact, I mean, honestly, Bing actually wins in a lot of areas. Again, DuckDuckGo uses Bing as its backend. There's a lot of areas where Bing actually beats, when I do a Bing images search, and yes, I've done this, I get much better results than I do with Google Images by a long shot. So I mean, there's areas, there's pluses and minuses, and you just have to decide on what's most important to you. A lot of it comes down to personal taste. A lot of what I just described is personal taste. But so again, there's really, I'm not saying DuckDuckGo is necessarily better or is the more ethical choice over StartPage. They're both fine. But DuckDuckGo just has certain advantages and does certain things that I appreciate more. So there's your answer on that. Okay, let's get into another question here. Here's a great question. Okay, so do you believe that there are quote unquote critical periods where a person's creativity peaks for only certain age ranges? So maybe I should have asked like a little more what's meant here, but I'm going to guess on what exactly is meant by this. Now, I think this question may have been in response to last week's Q&A, where I was talking about creativity and I was talking about like what I had planned for Sovereign Tech and all of this. First off, like let's be clear here, just how important creativity is. Right? In fact, I'm going to quote and I'm going to say happy birthday to Mr. William Shatner. Who of course played Captain Kirk and so Denny Crane, so many other great roles. I'm going to quote him from Star Trek, where he said, "Without freedom, or let's see, no, it was without freedom of choice there is no creativity. Without creativity there is no life." This is, that's a really a key thing. And choice, of course, there's kind of an irony within his statement there, is that freedom of choice. Choice is freedom. Like there's no freedom without choice. Just like there's without creativity, there's no life. I agree, or no like human life, I guess you could say. I agree with that. And I think it's a beautiful statement, all the same. Because without creativity, there is no life. Now, is there a critical age? I guess to get into it, and of course, again, like I said, happy birthday to Mr. Shatner, obviously. Just a hugely inspirational, figure in my life. I can't even begin to count that. So, okay, so are there critical periods where a person's creativity peaks for only certain age ranges? Okay, this is a weird so again, I'm kind of guessing at your meaning here. This gets into kind of a weird conversation because I don't really understand, and I think it's kind of creepy that adults make children's content. Like I really find that kind of odd, and I'll explain why. Now, I mean, this could turn into a huge conversation about like, Sudbury schools and all. I mean, like this could really, we could get into kind of the works of Dr. Peter Gray and some others. We're talking about like, and I know this is going to sound like way out left field, but talking about, well, like indigenous, like hunter-gatherer tribes, even modern hunter-gatherer tribes, like they have no understanding of age. Like the youngest kids, play and have fun with the oldest of kids, and the fun is, it's just that. It's straight up play. Nothing crazy, nothing predatory or anything like that. And in part of the, like, one could make the argument, okay, and I'm speaking very broadly here. There's tons of nuance and exceptions, I'm sure, to a lot of this. One could make the argument that children, like if you exist in, say, a tribe, a society, whatever, a civilization that doesn't think about age so much. Again, we're not talking about anything sexually here. I'm not even going there. Okay, but like, what does the kid see to mimic? They want to mimic what the adults are doing. The humans that are more capable, functional, stronger, etc. Right? Just because they're grown up. And my point being is that I think the original way that children, because look, thousands of years ago, obviously there weren't schools. They're like these, the concept of like a public school or even a private school or something like this, or the Prussian system, right? A lot of these different things, like they didn't exist. They weren't a part of the program. So how exactly did children learn to be functioning adults? within, say, a tribe or a civilization or an ancient city or, modern, whatever. How did this happen? It happened just because they saw adults having fun and they mimicked what the adults did as far as having fun, right? And because they weren't like excluded by nature, just by the nature of their age, from playing a game of, I don't know, like lacrosse or something, right? That that they would get in with it, and that's how they would end up growing to be, functioning adults. This isn't anything new I'm describing. I mean, anthropologists talk about this, sort of thing all the time, at least if they're honest. So the notion that there is entertainment designed specifically for children, I I don't want to say it's harmful, but it's so strange to me because it's not kids making that stuff. We were just talking about YouTube and how YouTube is such a big deal. I think part of the reason YouTube is such a big deal is because there are people on there, there are young kids on there that are young kids making content for other young kids. And it's all within the young kids' like mind. And so like it blows away any TV show that Nickelodeon could ever dream of making because these kids are like, "Oh no, they really get me." Right? So I think there's something to that. Like it is very much kind of it's very strange that to me that adults make that sort of thing. Now in fact I just mentioned Captain Kirk. Now when I was a kid, I've talked about this before on Sovereign Tech in the past. Okay, and I don't understand this, and there might be, I don't want to say there's a conspiracy or something nefarious going on about this, but this is just weird to me. So when I was growing up, my heroes, like, yeah, I watch Sesame Street. Sesame Street's, can be fun and whatever, and there's a lot of there's a lot of adult stuff that seeps into that, which is part of the thing. Is that like even when adults make stuff for kids, like it's impossible for like adult jokes, I think, to not find their way into it. Anyway, when I was a kid, the main thing that I watched, the really heroic characters. Like I watched Star Trek. I watched Captain Kirk. I wanted to be Captain Kirk. As far back as I can remember, I wanted to be Captain Kirk. Or even like with wrestling, say like, because again, I grew up in New York, and so wrestling's a thing. Covered this before too. I wanted to be Ric Flair, right? You go down the list of all these people, but here's the thing: I didn't want to be Jimmy Neutron, and I'm not knocking Jimmy Neutron, okay? But I wanted to be an adult. I wanted to be Kirk. I wanted to be, I wanted to be these guys in their 30s or whatever, right? And at the time, I mean, I know there was content out there. I couldn't, of course, I was raised Jewish, and so we couldn't watch TV on Shabbat. And so, like, I missed a lot of the Saturday morning cartoon craze. Okay. But, I read comic books endlessly. Okay, I wanted to be Batman. Batman's not 10. Batman's not 6 years old. Batman's a grown man. And that's that, like I wanted to, mimic that. I think it's weird that when your heroes or like what you aspire to be is kind of like the same age as you, because like you want to aspire to be a functioning human being, not necessarily an adult. Now, there's a second question here that I'm going to get to that might seem contradictory, but it's not. So yeah, I just don't get it. I don't understand, how people make things, for certain age ranges and all this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that kids should be able to, or not should be able to. That doesn't mean that you want to, expose children to every form of entertainment that is provided to the human experience. Okay, I'm not saying that at all, and I'm also not saying that there should be censorship. Okay, but yeah, you don't want to expose them to there's a definitely, in my opinion, a time and place for learning about certain things. So anyway, so is there I guess to get back to the question, are there critical periods where a person's creativity peaks for only certain age ranges? Yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly think so. I think that there are certain, well, that'd be kind of moving the goalpost a bit, I think, or changing what the question's intent was, not moving the goalpost. I don't know that there's like a critical age where that can happen. I mean, certainly I think that people that are 16, 17, 18, 10, whatever, like there's a certain amount of experience that kind of person, there's a limitation on how much experience, people that age can really gather. And because of that, you might be more relatable to other people in your age, in your age group. And because of that, maybe you can make more relatable content that they've never experienced before. I mean, again, like I said, this is the reason that YouTube is such a big fucking deal, in my opinion, is because age groups are finally able to actually relate to each other without getting through the filter bubble, or, without having to deal with the filter of, of Hollywood or, whoever's making the TV shows. So yeah, I don't know if there's some kind of critical age. I mean, all this stuff, a lot, especially when it comes with creativity or when it comes to entertainment and all that, all this shit is so heavily skewed because of these giant organizations like the RIAA, the MPAA, and others. It's not until something like YouTube comes around that we're even really able to, to discover, what real entertainment can be, and what it can look like. For example, like you take Lindsey Sterling, right? Now there's somebody that could appeal across the board, logically so. Can appeal to a 6-year-old all the way up to a 60, if not even older, and with good reason. Right? Because like there's such universal appeal in what gets done, and she's Lindsey Sterling's she's in her 30s now, and she became a big hit kind of in her late 20s. I mean, I think she's pretty much my age, like around there. So yeah, I don't know. It depends more, like with creativity, things depend more on what what kind of, what are you putting out there? Like her, her music doesn't have any words. It's straight, or generally doesn't have any words. I know some of the songs do. But, it's just straight violin and all this stuff. So everybody can kind of enjoy it because there's not words involved that require a certain understanding and a certain set of experiences, for you to have taken in, for it to make, real sense to you. Like with this, you just take it in, away you go. Or, she makes a music video where she's dressed as Zelda, and like, Zelda's been a thing for 30 years. So yeah, you've got like entire generations that crosses, that bridges a divide in, right? That can all experience that, or, appreciate that for what it is. I mean, the other thing with creativity is certainly, like, another aspect of creativity is economics. To even like be creative, to even start being creative, like it's very hard to be really creative unless you have like some kind of natural talent. It's very hard to be super creative when you're just trying to pay the bills, and you're barely getting by. Like it's so hard to be, super creative when you're doing that. To really be creative, I think you don't need, but generally, there's a certain level of comfort, of freedom of bandwidth in your own mind that you have to have to be able to do that. And I mean, and I can really appreciate this because holy shit, do I, have a hard time, summoning the creative will, at points, just because, sometimes you're just trying to get by. I can really appreciate that. And well, anyway, that's kind of the nature of creativity. But I think we have, as far as like what's proper for certain age ranges and a lot of this other stuff, I think reality is very skewed. As far as that goes, it really is. Like, because I don't know that like really like kidsy content. I mean, there's something to be said for making things that are cute. Like you take, for example, the Powerpuff Girls, right? That is, Powerpuff Girls is cool and can appeal to a wide range of, or a wide demographic, because, like, we all have, like, adults, kids, whatever. We all have the concept of cute. Like, we all understand that. And so even though really Powerpuff Girls is a very adult show, and it is, all right, like, I mean, a lot of the jokes, the Mojo Jojo is making and everything, like, those aren't really, that's not stuff a kid's gonna get. Like, it makes sense to adults because it's cute, but then kids watch it and they think it's cute, and all they see are, these three girls, doing their thing, being superheroes and whatever, and so that can that can appeal to them. They don't get all the other stuff, just like what was the show? Not Little Rascals, the one with Tommy and on Nickelodeon. Oh, I can't think of it. Anyway, but there was the cartoon with the babies. I know the name. You don't have to message me. I know it. I could look it up in a second and I'd remember it. But anyway, the one with Tommy and Chucky and all that. That would that can appeal. Like, that's not really a kid show, but I mean, like, adults can watch that and enjoy it because they remember what it was like to be a kid, right? And I guess the kids can get into it too and all this. So yeah, I really think that with creativity and kind of the content out there, and as far as creativity peaks and all this stuff for certain age ranges. I mean, I think we have just a wildly skewed and also very filtered sense of what what ages and what stage in human development, what works best for them, or not best, but what's the most entertaining, what's the most edifying, things like this. Anyway, boy, I'm all over the place on that question. So I hope I kind of answered it. But now here's the second part to that, and then I got a couple of things I want to get into quickly. But the second part to this is, what do you think of the culture of shaming adults who engage in activities that are considered quote unquote childish or quote unquote immature? Okay, so to answer this, like the culture of shaming adults, I really feel like that's fading away. When you look at like the amount of like cosplay that goes on at events, when you look at the ticket sales for conventions and a lot of these other things, I really think that's fading away. When you look at like kind of the veneration that parents get who wear a cape with their kid, who's also wearing a cape, just to so that the kid can feel like cool in what he's doing or whatever. I mean, because those kinds of parents. Yeah, I mean, like that really, or here's a great example. Recently, there was that video of the guy, the reporter, who was talking about Korea or something on the BBC, and his kids like came into his house and kind of invaded the video and everything. And everybody universally, this video went viral. Everybody universally said, because he kind of pushed his daughter out of the way, and everybody's like, "Oh no." It's like, that was a mistake. Just put your daughter on your lap and just go on continuing on with with your analysis of the political climate in in Korea, right? and I mean, when you see things like that, like, you get it. Like, now there's an appreciation that, look, professionalism includes having children be a major part of your life, and that they can appear on the BBC and people will love it. So it kind of speaks to this question of, shaming stuff that's childish or immature. I mean, I get it. Like, in the 90s, even when you were young, when you were like a teenager or something, I would constantly get picked on for being so much into Star Trek. I've talked about this, or if you're into Doctor Who and all that, people just, they think it's dumb. And I mean, even other kids your age will give you shit about it, to say nothing about adults. But as much as that goes, I mean, like, that's really kind of gone away. Like so much of that has very much gone away. LARPing, like acting out, role playing, has become incredibly commonplace. And yeah, there's still people. I mean, and I think, to a lot of adults, I think adults 20 years ago would have said, "What is this, a bunch of adults like playing make believe? What the fuck is wrong with them?" Again, I think so much of that has gone away. Now, if you've had if the question asker has had a personal experience with this and you want me to talk about it, like, I'm open to that. But I think a lot of that's gone away. Even on social media, like, I'll even post, and granted, I exist within like a certain community, right? Much of which you could say is kind of nerdy. But like, I'll post how I am running around the house in my Starfleet uniform pajamas with a Type 2 phaser in my hand, and pretending to phase make believe Romulans. And I'll get tons of likes or hearts or whatever. I mean, and people think it's great. So I sort of feel like that idea of shaming people for doing youthful things has really kind of gone away, because just in this generation, 10, 20 years ago, I think it would have been a real problem. And I think it's ridiculous because what really happens, I mean, and I'm sure it still happens today, but you know what it is? You know, to me, what it really is that, look, so few of us, and this part still happens, but I think a lot of people are just, now it's just more socially acceptable to be into this shit. That's kind of the bottom line. So this still happens, unfortunately, but what I think happened, and certainly happened over the past 100 years, if not since the beginning of time, is that our childhood wonder, our childhood, our imagination, our you know, all those things that can make you really enjoy the fact that Captain Kirk, is traveling through the stars, aboard a starship and all that. I think that gets beaten out of you by your parents or by other adults in your life, be it verbally or physically. And it is unfortunately a very rare person that even today, I mean, and I think it's becoming less rare, thankfully, is kind of my point. But it's rare that someone can make it out of childhood with their imagination and their childlike wonder intact. And so when adults shame people for, doing things that by a lot of standards or by maybe 20 years ago would have been seen as childish or something like this, it's because they didn't make it out of their childhood intact. They lost their sense of wonder and imagination, and that's a goddamn shame. And I have empathy for them. I feel bad, that occurred. For a quick example, before I move on to another topic. For a quick example, I remember my buddy and I, who I called Spock. He was my best friend for 15 years of my life. From 15 to 30. And then I moved. That's what happened. But my best friend, he and I, and this is when we were like 15, 16, we were in high school. Okay, really, really into Highlander, the series at the time. Duncan MacLeod, all that shit. We were wearing the long coats. This is before Columbine happened. Actually, it was right around the same time that Columbine happened. But anyway, we were wearing the long coats and all this stuff. We were really into Highlander. Like we thought this was the cool shit. And so we bought some like fake swords. Now, I mean, today it's amazing what you can get your hands on because of the fact that this, childhood actions, isn't shamed so much anymore. Now adults are buying Nerf guns, right, to do office, what is it, soft air weapons or whatever the fuck. I forget exactly what they call those. But, now people run around their offices like, shooting at each other with, Nerf guns and stuff like this all the time. Totally commonplace and totally accepted, it seems. And now they have like those great foam swords. I wish we had those foam swords when I was a teenager because we did not. We had to get plastic swords that we had to reinforce by putting a bunch of shit into them, but keeping the plastic so they weren't sharp and all that. And then finally when we turned 18, we bought real swords. But but anyway, we did what we had to. But we were probably like 16, 17 or something. And at the time I lived way out in the country in upstate New York. And he was, staying over the night, having fun. And we went out on, on our driveway, we broke out swords and, we pretended we were doing a full-on Highlander fight at like 16, 17 years old. We also played with action figures at that time too, together. Like, we'd be in the room and everything, but still playing with action figures. Playing with action figures, that might be the one that people are still a little skeeved out by. But I think that's horseshit, because how's that any different than playing an RPG game? And everybody does that from ages, 6 to 60. I'm and older. I'm baffled by that being an issue anymore, and it's just stupid if it is. But anyway, so, we'd be doing that, but we were sword fighting, and somehow somebody, a fellow classmate, they must have been four-wheeling around. Like I said, we were out in the country and all this. And they must have seen us doing it. And they cracked jokes at us in school, come Monday, because it was on the weekend that he was having the sleepover. Or that I had him sleeping over. And it was just like, we're just like, fuck you. like, what are you doing watching us? You got a Studenhofer going for you or something? Like, what's the deal here? And so, we we wrote it off. But at first it was a little embarrassing because we didn't think anybody was watching. And yeah, like, there was at the time, again, this would have been the late 90s, there was the time where, okay, that was seen as childish. And like, if you're a grown person, or if you wanted a girlfriend, how dare you, do some crazy shit like that. I mean, now, today, fuck, if your girlfriend's not down with that, or boyfriend or whatever, kindly ask them to leave and say, yeah, this isn't going to work out for the long term. See you later. All right? Because if they're not into, expressing their imagination and all that shit, trust me, the bedroom's never going to be that great. So, not that everything has to be about sex. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was, I'll admit, like, I kind of felt the embarrassment, and they thought that they were justified, in insulting us. Of course, we gave it right back to them. But, those were guys, unfortunately, in my opinion, 16, 17 years old, again, they were our same age, who even at that age had already lost their ability for imagination, and had already lost their childlike wonder, and just they've already limited what they consider to be fun and a good time, to different things, and I feel bad for them. Now, thinking about it, it's like, well, I'm sorry. I guess your parents or society or whatever told you that you weren't allowed to do these sorts of things anymore, and that is fucking shit. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. So that's what I think about that. I think that shaming adults for being into, childish or immature things, I really think that's going away. I mean, it's so hard to find an adult that doesn't still play Magic anymore. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of in a self-selective group. I'm sure there's parts of the U.S. where things are that way. I mean, vote with your feet if you can. If you're in an area that's like that ridiculously conservative, to where, they want to insult you for being into this sort of shit. Or being into whatever they consider to be childish. I mean, those are a couple of very broad questions asked there. But anyway, they're from Twitter, so 140 characters doesn't really allow for a whole ton of nuance. So, all right, let's get into the last couple bits here. I hope that answered it. If you have further questions on what I just cared to say, feel free to ask them. All right, so let's get into, I'll do the album of the week for this week, and then I have one more topic I won't spend a whole ton of time on, because I don't like these shows to go much over an hour. I don't even like them to get to an hour, but they end up doing that because I get verbose. So anyway, album of the week this week. In fact, this is, I'm going to do this one in honor of the movie that's coming out this week, that the reviews I've seen so far said it isn't great, but I'll reserve my judgment for now. And that is Power Rangers, which is coming out this Friday. The lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy and I will be seeing this. I will be doing a review of it on Sovereign Tech Prime, don't you worry. But so in honor of that, I thought I would mention an album that came out a few years ago now, and I think 2012 or 2013 it came out. And it is awesome. It is a wonderful thing to have out there in the world. And what it is, it's called Power Rangers Redo, or Redux, however you want to pronounce that, Redux. And of course, it's mentioned in the show notes for this episode if you want to, find it. It's done by Ron Wasserman, which Ron Wasserman was one of the, original music composers for the Power Rangers series, at least the first few seasons. And it is just like taking all of the music from at least the first couple seasons, which were certainly the most popular of Power Rangers, back in the Green Ranger and pretty much the Green Ranger days. And that's largely what this covers. In fact, there's like White Rangers not on this album at all. But yeah, so Ron Wasserman, that's what you want to look up. Ron Wasserman, Power Rangers Redux, or Redo, whatever. It's, it's like 20 tracks. So some of them are, half of it's instrumental. The other half will include the words for whatever songs it happens to be. And it's really good. I mean, like they take, not that they push it. Like I've seen some Sovereign Tech patrons have actually shared some really heavy metal versions of like the Power Rangers theme, and I think they're great. Like I love all of them, but this just makes them more into like coherent songs. All of the Power Rangers music. I mean, everybody remembers the Power Rangers theme. Go Power Rangers. I mean, it was just such an energetic riff. And so you get all of that with the Power Rangers Redux or your Redo album. Um, and it has the Green Ranger theme on it, which I consider quintessential. I'm disappointed that it doesn't have. So before this, what you had was there was Power Rangers the album, A Rock Adventure, and that is an album that came out. Oh boy. Well, that came out like during the second season of Power Rangers. And this is a tough thing to find. You can find it on the torrents. I don't think you can actually really like buy it digitally. You can buy the tape or the CD maybe, though the CD had to be super rare because when it first came out, cassettes were still owning the world. That had a really good collection of songs, but they interspersed it with like some audio theater. So you wouldn't have like the full song, and that's the great thing about the Power Rangers Redo album is that it's composed as like a full song, and it has like a lot better production values behind it, from Ron Wasserman himself. But the Power Rangers the album was great, or Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the album, I guess I should say, was really great because it had the classic Power Rangers theme song. It even had a good long version on it. It had Go Green Ranger Go, but it also had White Ranger Tiger Power. So it had the White Ranger theme on it too, which I wish that this album, the Power Rangers Redo, I wish that it had the Power Rangers album, or I wish it had the White Ranger music. Even though the White Ranger music's very simple, like on the Power Rangers the album, it's like a minute long. There's not a whole lot going for it there. But, I mean, I would have loved to have seen it turned into a full song if Ron Wasserman would have done it. The other one that I really like is Go Gold Ranger Go, which you can hear that on, so I think on the Turbo soundtrack that was on there. And then there was like a Power Rangers Greatest Hits album that came out that had the Gold Ranger music on it. Now, of course, Gold Ranger was, the character of Jason, who was originally the Red Ranger in the first couple seasons of Power Rangers. He became Gold Ranger in Power Rangers Zeo, the Power Rangers Zeo theme song, that's another one I would have loved to have had on the Power Rangers Redo album. So you still kind of, if you really want all the Power Rangers music, you want to collect like all of those albums. You want that greatest hits or the best. I think it's the best of Power Rangers. I think that's what it's called. You want that. You want Power Rangers the album. Or Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the album, A Rock Adventure, and then you want Power Rangers Redo. I mean, and just awesome. Like I could listen to that shit the whole time. I'm a little peeved that this used to be a thing that and it was kind of like, I think it was considered marketing for the movie, and maybe they just feel they don't have to do this anymore. But the release of the soundtrack for a movie, usually they'd release like a soundtrack for a movie like a month in advance, way ahead. Like I remember like Episode 1 for Star Wars. The album or the soundtrack came out like on May 2nd, and the movie didn't come out until much later in the month. I miss that. Like I'd love to have the score. I'd love to have the soundtrack for Power Rangers, and I haven't seen it for the new one, for the movie coming out this Friday, and I haven't seen that available yet, which is kind of disappointing. So, well, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, there's your album of the week, Ron Wasserman's Power Ranger Redux, and I think I just think it's dynamite. Like I work out to that album all the time, right from the beginning, and I'll listen to all the way through. And it's nice to have the instrumentals too; they could be fun. Maybe at some point I'll use them for something within Sovereign Tech itself. Okay, so for my last bit here, and we're wrapping things up. I want to do a little, and I've done these a few times on Sovereign Tech Q&As. And that is, I want to do a little Star Wars update for you. Now, I actually opened up episode 217, or was it 216? Episode 216 of Sovereign Tech this week, talking about, Star Wars a little bit, because I just watched Rogue One again that morning, and I was just like, wow, especially the second half of that film, that is just a masterpiece. That is such a good movie. First half's not perfect, but the second half makes everything so goddamn worth it. So good. So yeah, Rogue One, a Star Wars story is coming out this week on, I think the 24th is when it gets its official digital release. Of course, it's already out on the torrents, and totally worth it. There's no deleted scenes in the release, which I think is bullshit. I talked about that already on Sovereign Tech Prime. But what I do want to talk about, I don't really want to talk about Rogue One here. I don't necessarily want to talk about Star Wars Rebels, even though maybe next week I'll talk a little bit about Rebels because the season finale for season 3 is coming this Saturday. But the update I want to talk about is so I've talked often on Patreon Q&As because I've been asked questions of, hey, I want to get into the greater canon, the larger canon of Star Wars. What novels should I start off with? What comic books? Blah, blah, blah. What should I get into? So I want to do a little update on that. And I just want to say, because finally we've had the Aftermath trilogy of Star Wars books, which is all 3 of them are done by Chuck Wendig, and these were being marketed in many ways as being the most important books to come out of the new Star Wars canon, because again, they restarted the canon in 2013 when Disney bought out Star Wars. These were supposed to be the most important books because they would bridge what happens. They were the direct sequel to Return of the Jedi, and they would bridge everything to what happens in The Force Awakens. And considering that level of prestige and that level of gravitas that these books are not gravitas. Well, just the importance, I should say, the importance of what these books are supposed to be, and even outside of that fact, like even if they weren't supposed to be that important, the Aftermath trilogy. You have the first one, Aftermath, then you have Aftermath, Life Debt, which there's is fair enough. There were points I talked about it on Sovereign Tech Q&As, and yeah, I mean it was fair enough. And then I just finished Empire's End, which is the third one, the end of the trilogy. These books suck. Like, as a whole, this trilogy is fucking terrible. There is almost no payoff. And certainly no relative payoff compared to what gets sold to you in Aftermath. There is no payoff to reading these books. The only interesting thing you get out of it, so spoiler alert, folks, but consider it a favor. The only interesting things you get out of it, I mean, like there's in Empire's End, there's a great scene with Lando and Lobot that I thought was really cool. Anytime Lando's come up in the new canon, he's always been treated really well. Like, he's always been given like a really, like they deliver on that character. Like with the Lando comic, I still think that's the best comic series to come out out of the new canon. It has been there was the Lando miniseries, which is fantastic, which actually is in many ways relative to stuff that happens within Empire's End. Like, because in the Lando comic books, he's stealing the Imperialis, and the Imperialis comes back in Empire's End, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, so the best things that happen to this, of course, there's the Battle of Kashyyyk, or the liberation of Kashyyyk, Chewbacca's world. It's nice to know that Chewbacca's son has made it into the new canon, was Lumpy, or Lumpuraru, or whatever the fuck his name is, but they used to call him Lumpy, now they call him Wararu, or something. That was, that's cool. The Battle of Jakku, you find out, kind of what the deal is with Jakku, and kind of a good thing coming out of this, because now it's not like Jakku is just a cheap copy of Tatooine anymore. Now there's like a whole purpose behind Jakku, and that was kind of interesting to find out. But you find it out in like a couple of chapters. It's not like a major. You didn't need an entire trilogy of books to be able to tell you all this. And maybe that describes best this whole thing, is that all of the relevant information, all of the interesting stuff, didn't even take up one novel, let alone require a gigantic trilogy that took 2 years to come to fruition, or to come to completion, I should say. And really disappointing, really fucking disappointing. So here's a spoiler alert. Here's the interesting things that come out of this, is you find out that the Emperor, that being Sheev Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine was, like, he discovered at some point, he discovers that there is some kind of greater power outside of the known galaxy, and really outside of, like the Star Wars galaxy, like the galaxy that the events of Star Wars takes place within, which whatever galaxy that happens to be, we don't know. But outside of that, there's some kind of grand power kind of on its way. And he knows this, and it's one of the reasons, in fact, Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's one of my favorite characters, is doing, is being pretty cool in Rebels. Thrawn, or he gets mentioned in Empire's End, but you find out that that's kind of why, like like he wanted Thrawn to be, why he kept Thrawn around, because Thrawn knew about these unknown regions, which isn't anything new for Star Wars. In the expanded universe before Disney restarted everything, you still had these unknown regions or wild space. You have all these different areas of, the outer rim, the inner rim, and all this shit, right? The core worlds. You had all this difference, the way that the galaxy was broken up within the Star Wars, expanded universe, and it's still true, even in the new canon. So you find out that there's something that Sheev is concerned about, or that Palpatine is the Emperor was concerned about. Of course, the Emperor's dead now, and because of that, and then also you find out that if this theory that the Emperor had, that if the Emperor died, he wanted the Empire to be destroyed, because he said, what good can an empire be that can't even protect its Emperor? So, I mean, a vindictive asshole, certainly. But all of these little things, in fact, it proves a point that I made. I think the last time I did a Star Wars update for Sovereign Tech Q&A, which probably would have been back in December when Rogue One came out, or just before Rogue One came out. I said at that point, the kind of the shitty thing is, for most of the Star Wars novels that come out, is that it's not until like the last chapter that anything that actually fucking matters gets explored and described. And this is true also for Empire's End, because it's not until you get to the last chapter, or close to the last chapter, it's actually chapter 35, where you suddenly find out what all of this is about. How did what was the Emperor's plans with the Empire, in the case of his death? What is all this bullshit going on in the unknown regions? I mean, all this gets described in one chapter. The rest of the books, I mean, it's all bullshit. There's no point to it. I was so pissed off when this book was done. I was like, okay, what you told us was really cool, but it was not worth reading all 3 goddamn books. It wasn't worth reading a single book, about it, to get to that point. Oh man, I'm still livid. About it. It's unbelievable. Chuck Wendig is a shit fucking author. There, I said it. And I'm not saying I'm a great author, and maybe I can't talk or something. He's a shit author. The second person, the weird perspective that the Aftermath books had, it was so bad. I mean, yeah, there's moments here and there that are interesting to find out about, and you find out about Jar Jar and all, but it wasn't worth the fucking payoff for what you were supposed to get out of this. And the other chapter, it's not even a chapter that was interesting, was the epilogue, where Ray Sloan, Grand Admiral Ray Sloan, who's a great character, by the way, but she existed before before Aftermath. Like, it's not like Chuck Wendig created a great character. He didn't. Maybe the only cool character that Chuck Wendig created was Bones, that fucking droid, the battle droid that protects Snap Wexley. Which that character is funny, but maybe it's only funny in the audiobooks, because they give him the battle droid voice. But anyway, so you find out at the end that Ray Sloan, yeah, she goes out into the unknown regions, and you find out that like the unknown regions is it's really fucked up. There's like these space lightning storms and all this other crazy shit going on, and you get hints that she's going off to create the First Order. And Hux, who would end up being General Hux in The Force Awakens, you kind of meet that character. You meet all these different things, and you get some but now, you already know after you hear the epilogue that there's a point, and it's not covered in Bloodlines by Claudia Gray, which is a great book, by the way. It takes place 6-8 years before The Force Awakens. I have no problem with that book, but there's obviously a time frame between, this was not a journey to The Force Awakens whatsoever. That's what these were billed as. This is going to bridge the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Nope. Didn't happen. Didn't fucking happen. Didn't happen. I get it. Maybe they can't, because there's a bunch of stuff they need to reveal in episode 8 or episode 9 or something. But there's going to be hopefully Chuck Wendig's not fucking writing it. Okay, but there's going to be a really great book that takes place between Aftermath, Empire's End, and The Force Awakens. That's the story that everybody really fucking wanted. Because what we got with the Aftermath trilogy is garbage. It's shit. I mean, ooh, yay, we got to see Ben Solo get born. Kylo Ren gets born. Oh, dear. It didn't matter. It happened. That's another thing that happened in the last goddamn chapter of the book. It's just the Star... I don't know what is with maybe it'll get better. after episode 8 comes out, after some of these other movies come out, so that we don't have to live in so much goddamn mystery. But these books, most of these books are suffering. They are suffering from it. The best books have taken place generally, in my opinion. The best books, Star Wars books from the new canon, have taken place between episode 3 and say episode 4. And the reason that those books have been great is because there's no mystery. There's no waiting for episode 4 to come out. We already have episode 4, so you can reveal, you can cover shit. You don't have to hide everything until the last goddamn chapter of the book, which only ends up being a tease for whatever the fucking next movie is. I am really disappointed in the Aftermath trilogy. Disney deserves getting a lot of heat and a lot of shit for it because they dropped the ball on what were supposed to be the most important books to get released up until now, at least. Now I'm excited. April 11th, the Thrawn book comes out, being written by Timothy Zahn. I already have it pre-ordered. I am ready to go. I can't wait for it. But fucking Aftermath is so bad, and I better hear every Rebel Force Radio, which is one of the Star Wars podcasts I listen to, along with Jedi Council, but Rebel Force Radio in particular, very kindly, not kindly, ripped Chuck Wendig's books to shreds. Good. As to where I think Jedi Council with Christian Harloff and all those guys, they've been a little nicer about it. They don't need to be nice. Tear these books a new asshole, because they are garbage. The only good moments about them have nothing to do with the overall story arc being described by Chuck Wendig, that the bulk of the chapters take up, having to do with whatever, Nora Wexley, right? Snap Wexley's mother and all that. Like, all that stuff is all fucking meaningless. It's all crap. The only things that were exciting, and value subjective, I get it, but to me, the only things that were exciting were, finding out what the Emperor had in mind, what he was doing, kind of the creation of the First Order. Everything else just didn't matter. There was almost no development whatsoever over what, Han Solo was really becoming, say, after Return of the Jedi. You get nothing about Luke. You get practically nothing. You get mentions here and there, but otherwise you really get nothing about Luke. Like, if you're coming off of Return of the Jedi, baby, you got to give us some Luke Skywalker. You got to give us a lot of it, because this guy just beat the Emperor, and you get none of that. These books were so terrible. They did not deliver at all on any of the hype that they were pushing. Not even close. And again, Chuck Wendig's writing style, I'm not saying he's a bad writer. I'm just saying I despise, and in my opinion, there's no place in science fiction for really anything other, especially a well-founded universe, for anything other than the third-person perspective. Third-person past perspective. There's no place for that whatsoever. To be doing kind of the bullshit that he was writing. He wrote in a very weird perspective. Wasn't really first person, but it was just strange. I don't know. I didn't fucking like it at all. So screw it. If I ever said anything nice about Chuck Wendig, I take it all back. because this was garbage. So, but otherwise, the Star Wars comics, they're doing pretty good. I'm enjoying the comics. There's lots of other things kind of going on. I can't wait for the Thrawn book. I'm hoping, I'll say this now, I'm hoping they don't kill off Thrawn at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 3. There's a lot of guesses that there's going to be a new animated series announced at Star Wars Celebration, which is coming up in April. I'm excited for that. Rogue One's great. Stuff's shaping up for the Han Solo movie. A lot of great stuff's going on, but god damn it, this Aftermath trilogy was so bad. And a lot of the other content, we're not, you gotta start giving us Luke Skywalker. You really do. You gotta give us Luke Skywalker. You cannot be relying on a lot of these minor characters. You gotta be giving people so much more. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with the same poor sales figures that started to take over the expanded universe before Disney bought it, and those bad sales numbers existed because things were getting away from a lot of the main characters, and things just, I don't know, things were getting stale. So I'm concerned that Disney is they might already be oversaturating things without delivering any real nuggets on what people actually want. So anyway, there's a little Star Wars update for you for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the Q&A. I'm going to finish up here. This already went a lot longer than I wanted. I'm going to go grab some dinner. Woo! And got some other episodes that are going to be coming out over the next few days. I promise that. And yeah, woo. New Sex and Science Hour, new Sovereign Tech, of course, lined up. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovereign Tech. Go to sovereigntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovereign Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.